to a brand new episode of India Election Watch, the only show that gets you clear updates and analysis, the very latest on India's electoral space. We believe there should be a premium on unbiased and uncluttered reporting, and that's what we are trying to do. When everyone's taking sides, we are bringing you updates, facts and opinion, and we are letting you decide who you should support. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's take you through what happened today on India's Election Watch. Before we bring you up to speed with today's election events, the big story at the moment, a blog bomb. Veteran BJP leader LK Advani has written a blog, a post that the BJP would rather you did not read. Here's the crux of it, I'm quoting. The essence of Indian democracy, says Mr. Advani, is respect for diversity and freedom of expression. Right from its inception, the BJP has never regarded those who disagree with us politically as our enemies, but only as our adversaries. Similarly, in our conception of Indian nationalism, and this is important, we have never regarded those who disagree with us politically as anti-national. The party has been committed to freedom of choice of every citizen at personal as well as political level. That's LK Advani, one of the things that he said in the blog. Fine words these. Also Mr. Advani's first since he was denied a BJP ticket. The party said that he was keen to contest, but we know that politicians in India was not keen to contest rather, but we know that politicians never want to retire in this country. Mr. Advani's name did not figure in the BJP's list of candidates this time. With good reason. He's 91 years old. His bastion was Gandhinagar in Gujarat. That ticket was given to BJP President Amit Shah. Those old photos show Amit Shah as a party worker when Advani was the party president, how tables have turned. Now, Amit Shah is contesting from Gandhinagar this time. For Advani, this may have been very hard to swallow, given the past. LK Advani was in the Bharatiya Janasangh. He was one of the founders of the BJP. He's also credited for the party's turnaround from a paltry 2 seats in 1984 to 85 seats in Parliament in 1989. That was the first time the BJP got more than 10% of the vote in India. Advani even rose to become a deputy prime minister. That was between 2002 and 2004 under Atal Bihari Vajpayee. 10 years out of power, Advani was the senior-most leader of the BJP in 2014. But with Narendra Modi's rise, Advani was shunted to the Margdarshak Mandal with other senior leaders, relegated to an advisory role. In 2014, he was also dropped from the BJP's parliamentary board. The writing was on the wall. It was a sign of things to come. The decision to bench LK Advani marked the end of a long electoral journey. But he's not going without a fight. This blog post could be Advani's one of his last political moves. The BJP is yet to respond. It was an action-packed Thursday outside. In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Delhi. Opposition leaders were busy holding rallies in the east and south of India. Let's bring up the rally roster for you. Rahul Gandhi was in Wayanad to file his nomination today. Later, he made his way to Nagpur to kickstart the Congress campaign in Maharashtra. A total of 48 seats are up for grabs in that state. 7 seats in Vidarbha go to the polls in the first phase alone. The BJP campaign has hit the 5th gear. Amit Shah was in Andhra Pradesh. His engagements in Telangana were cancelled due to an emergency meeting, we are told. 42 seats on the line in both the states put together, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Mayawati was challenging Amit Shah in Andhra Pradesh. She held 2 rallies in the state today, while Rahul Gandhi, as we said, was in Kerala. Smriti Irani went to Amethi. She is challenging Mr. Gandhi for a second time in the Congress bastion. And finally, West Bengal. Mamata Banerjee is on the campaign trail in her home state. It has 42 seats, the state of West Bengal. The BJP has momentum this time, but Mamata, we know, is no pushover. This story is about 3 women who dominated the election discourse today. Mamata Banerjee, Smriti Irani and Mayawati. All of them were on the campaign trail, as you just saw. Let's start with the Chief Minister of West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee. She kicked off her campaign on Wednesday. She advanced her schedule by 1 day to match Modi's. She has decided the Prime Minister is a main opponent and she's taking him on. The BJP thinks it has a good chance to make a dent in West Bengal. A divided opposition means that Mamata Banerjee will fight alone, and she is leading from the front. An ugly war of words erupted on Wednesday. Prime Minister Modi called Mamata Banerjee the speed breaker in Bengal's development. Mamata returned the favor by calling Modi Hitler's uncle and a fascist. She said that if he is elected to power, Narendra Modi is elected to power again, he will turn India into a totalitarian regime.
তুমি তো মোহাম্মদ বিন তুগলকের ঠাকুরদাদা, হিটলারের জ্যাঠামশাই, ফ্যাসিবাদী শক্তি। হঠাৎ মনে হলো নোটবন্দি করে দিল, সব টাকা বাতিল। হঠাৎ মনে হলো তাড়াহুড়ো করে জিএসটি করে দিল। হঠাৎ মনে হলো উনি চৌকিদার হয়ে গেলেন। হঠাৎ মনে হলো উনি চায়ওয়ালা হয়ে গেলেন। হঠাৎ মনে হলো উনি রাজা হয়ে গেলেন। হঠাৎ মনে হলো একটা নিজের নামে টিভি চ্যানেল বানাবে, নমো টিভি বানিয়ে দিল। হঠাৎ মনে হলো নিজের নেহেরু কোটটা নিজের নামে চালাবে, নমো দোকান হয়ে গেল। আরে জামা প্যান্ট পর্যন্ত নিজের নামে বিক্রি করছে, বুঝুন। আবার নিজের নামে সিনেমাও তৈরি করেছে। কেন লোকে তোমার সিনেমা দেখবে? দেখবে কেন? লোকে সিনেমা দেখলে গান্ধীজি দেখবে, নেতাজি দেখবে, রবীন্দ্রনাথ দেখবে, আম্বেদকর দেখবে, আমাদের পঞ্চানন বর্মা দেখবে। তোমায় কেন দেখবে ভাই? তুমি কে? কি করেছো দেশের জন্য?
Next, we have Smriti Irani. She landed up in Amethi when the Gandhis were in Kerala. She's contesting from this constituency that has always been a Gandhi bastion. Smriti Irani launched her election campaign with a sharp attack on Rahul Gandhi. She said the Congress president had insulted the people of Amethi by filing a second nomination from Wayanad. She'll be in Amethi for 2 days. She fought Rahul Gandhi for the same seat in 2014 as well. She lost, but she also dented Rahul Gandhi's vote share significantly, and her performance has given the BJP some confidence. The gap between Gandhi and Irani was more than 1 lakh votes last time. The BJP is hoping that she will bridge it this time.
15 साल से सतत राहुल गांधी अमेठी से सांसद रहे। जिस व्यक्ति ने अमेठी के प्रश्नों को नहीं उठाया, वो केरल में जाके क्या लोगों के साथ इंसाफ करेगा? तो आज न सिर्फ केरल बल्कि देश के हर एक लोकसभा क्षेत्र में अगर कांग्रेस के नेतृत्व की क्षमता को देखना चाहते हैं तो आप आके अमेठी के हालात निश्चित रूप से देखिए। 10 साल कांग्रेस पार्टी केंद्र में सत्ता में थी। अगर राहुल गांधी चाहते तो अमेठी आज बदहाल नहीं होती। जानबूझकर अमेठी को बदहाल रखा गया ताकि अमेठी का नागरिक हमेशा कांग्रेस के नेतृत्व के सामने हाथ फैलाता रहे।
There is another leader who's fighting hard. Mayawati is trying to mount her comeback on the national scene, and she's eyeing a bigger role at the centre, which is why she has launched a campaign from Andhra Pradesh this time. Her party, the BSP, has forged an alliance with Pawan Kalyan's Kanasena party in Andhra Pradesh, and before her rallies, Mayawati had some sharp comments to make on Twitter. Her target was the Prime Minister again, and I'm quoting from what she said. By portraying Modi is India and India is Modi, the BJP RSS are committing the same mistake and insulting India and democracy, which the Congress had earlier done by declaring Indira is India and India is Indira. A huge pity and most condemnable. People should not forgive them for this. Kerala's Wayanad is a rural district. It has a population of more than 8 lakh people. It's away from the hustle and bustle of metros. But today was a different day for Wayanad. Rahul Gandhi landed there. He filed his nomination from Wayanad. A massive crowd of Congress workers and supporters followed him to this remote district in North Kerala. The Congress president was flanked by his sister, Priyanka Gandhi Vadra. After filing the papers, he held a roadshow. Kicking off his campaign in the southern state, large crowds had gathered for this event. A barricade broke during this roadshow. There was utter chaos. 3 journalists were injured, and guess who attended to them? Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi Vadra helped the injured as the cameras rolled. Later, the Congress president spoke to the media. His campaign pitch remains the same: jobs, a minimum income for the poor, and national unity.
I felt that there is an assault on the idea of Kerala, of the south, of the northeast. There is an assault taking place, an attack taking place by RSS, BJP, Narendra Modi. And I felt it was very important that I give a message to the country that I will stand from South India and from North India.
Much has been said about Rahul Gandhi's second seat. Speculation had been on for weeks. A few days back, the Congress announced it finally. Their party president will contest from 2 seats, Amethi and Wayanad. But why Wayanad, you may ask? Beyond the symbolism, there are 3 reasons for this decision. First, because of the high tribal population in the state, Wayanad is home to the largest tribal population in Kerala. Second, nearly 80% of the population of Wayanad depends on farming. The Congress still considers the farmer as its main vote bank. And third, minorities. They account for more than 50% of the electorate. In Wayanad, they are the majority. So the Congress thinks that it's a good idea to field Rahul Gandhi from Wayanad, but in the process of hurting the BJP, they've also hurt old ties. An old ally of the Congress party is upset with this move. The CPIM, the Communist Party, views Rahul Gandhi's entry as a direct challenge to them. After the last general election, the left has been reduced to only a few pockets of India, and Kerala is one of them, one of the few remaining centres that still votes for the CPIM. Rahul Gandhi's aggressive entry in the south cuts into their votes. For his part, the Congress president is trying his best to pacify an ally. We do not know if he's been able to convince them.
I understand that the CPM has to attack me. I understand that they have to fight me. But I am not going to say a word against the CPM. I'm here to send a message of unity. I'm here to send a message that South India is important. And I fully understand that the CPM has to attack me. So I will absorb all their attack with happiness. But from me, you will not hear a word in my campaign against the CPM. Thank you.
But the fissures between the Congress and the CPIM are now abundantly clear. Rahul Gandhi may not be saying it, but it's there for everyone to see. They were alliance partners during the UPA regime, but the left withdrew after the nuclear deal with the US. That's history. They were trying to strike up a pre-poll alliance this time. It did not happen. The left is fighting for its relevance. Its vote share has shrunk in Kerala, and the Congress feels it can sweep Kerala in this election. This is one of the few states where the Congress still has a strong machinery on the ground. Kerala often features prominently in the national discourse. The choice of Wayanad is interesting for another reason. Wayanad shares its border with both Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. And the Congress hopes that Rahul Gandhi's victory, if there is a victory in Wayanad, will have a spillover effect in the 2 neighbouring states. But the Grand Old Party could pay a price for this attempt. No alliance with the CPIM could split votes in West Bengal as well. Together, the Congress and the CPIM had won only 6 seats in the last election there. Contesting against the left splits the voter base, whether it is Kerala or West Bengal, which is why the CPIM's mouthpiece, Deshabhimani, has called Rahul Gandhi's decision, and I'm quoting what they said, a Pappu strike. Ever since, even as Rahul Gandhi, in fact, breathes some fresh Kerala air in Wayanad, smoke has been rising from the Sabrimala hill nearby. The scene of violent protests by religious groups and devotees, the temple on the hill is frequented by more than 20 million pilgrims every year. And in September last year, the Supreme Court of India set aside a decades-old ban, a ban on the entry of women of menstruating age. The response was dramatic. 3 statewide shutdowns, the arrest of at least 10,000 people, and riots after 2 women entered the shrine in January this year. This election season, Sabrimala is back in focus, the other temple town that can swing votes. The question is, which way? This is a frequently asked question. How will Sabrimala affect the political equilibrium in the state of Kerala? Especially with the recent entry of the BJP into the scene. For decades, Kerala has been bipolar in its voting pattern. On the one side, we have the LDF, the Left Democratic Front, led by the CPIM, the Communist Party of India Marxist. On the other side is the UDF, the United Democratic Front, which is led by the Congress Party. And then comes the BJP. Where do they stand on Sabrimala, all these parties? Both the Congress and the BJP backed the protesters. They backed the people who did not want women to enter. So much for promises of women's empowerment. Now, the BJP has been more vocal, more vociferous in opposing the entry of women. The only side that was for the entry of women was the left. So the rather emotive Sabrimala issue pitted the ruling left against the Congress and the BJP. Now do keep in mind that the BJP is at best a distant third in this state. The CPI may lose at least 5% of its traditional Hindu vote, and that should benefit the BJP. The party can only go up from where it is right now, and the Sabrimala controversy came as a golden opportunity for the Saffron Party. The BJP has also in fact feels that it has a good chance due to backing from an influential caste body, the Nair Service Society, the NSS. The Congress meanwhile has been plagued by a dilemma. Leaders at the party headquarters in Delhi do not want to back the protesters. Leaders on the ground, members of the state unit of the Congress party, do not have a choice but to back these protesters. Their workers threaten to move to the BJP if the party doesn't protest the entry of women. So the Congress isn't very keen on discussing Sabrimala. Instead, it is pitching itself as the only alternative to the BJP on the national level. The ruling left has tried to remain unperturbed by the scale of the Sabrimala protest. They've been harping on how the state is progressive. They've tried to shift focus to their development work, especially the restoration post the devastating floods in Kerala. The left's campaign has left out Sabrimala. But for the voters, it is still an issue. And the beneficiary is the BJP. Did you know how and when India, a country of two major national parties, became a country of regional satraps? The trend began in the mid-1990s. We've seen ups and downs since, and this election season, India is again waking up to the reality of regional politics. As polling dates draw near, the focus is increasingly on regional and smaller parties. India houses a plethora of highly individualistic regions, which have their own history, their own culture. In Europe, each of them would have been referred to as a separate nation state. In India, they're part of one vibrant democratic setup. And these regions come with their own politics. And they are going to have a major say in who forms the government after this election. The last time the BJP steamrolled the opposition to a record 282 Lok Sabha seats. Its vote share, the BJP's vote share, was 31%, close to that. Now, a closer look at the numbers tells a very interesting story. In 2014, the vote share of the national parties as a whole, including the Congress, touched an all-time low of a little over 60%. In the 1990s, these national parties contributed to more than 80% of the national vote share. Now, to register as a state level or a national political party, an outfit needs to poll a minimum percentage of votes or win a minimum number of seats. Those who do not are termed as unrecognized parties. In 2014, the vote share of regional parties like the Aam Aadmi Party, the Trinamool Congress together was 22.7%. Back in the 90s, that number was a mere 2.2%. So you see the rise from 2% to 22% in less than 20 years. And now look at this. The vote share of independent candidates has remained more or less the same, about 3 to 4%. Over the last 3 decades, the hold of national parties on India's voters has declined. Their vote share is just over a half of the total voting population. The BJP and Congress together won an average of 56.5% seats in the last 4 Lok Sabha elections. A minimum share of 40% seats remained with the regional parties despite the anti-incumbencies, despite regional issues, despite political waves. They remained there. Between 1999 and 2014, both the BJP and the Congress formed governments twice each with the support of regional alliance partners. While the Congress has lost steadily and the BJP has gained steadily in this period, the real rise has been that of the regional players. This includes the likes of the AIDMK in Tamil Nadu, the JDS in Karnataka, the RJD in Bihar, BJD in Odisha and others. So much of the Congress Party's loss, in fact, has not been directly the BJP's gain. In fact, Rahul Gandhi's decision to contest from Wayanad in Kerala seems to be a back-to-basics move. He's trying to project the Congress as a national party that has deep understanding of the regional issues of the country, at least one of the many regions, that's Kerala. So what explains the rise of these regional parties, you may ask? 2 things. 1, people in states feel that the so-called national parties are not sensitive to and not sincere about regional issues. And 2, the national ambitions of regional leaders. They want a bigger role, and they're asserting themselves. If not kings, then kingmakers at least. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Election Watch. Do keep your comments coming with the hashtag India Election Watch. You can tweet to us. Keep watching. You're watching WION. World is One.